Hey everyone, it's Matt Crevin with Talk Shop. Excited to bring to you another Industry Insider interview. Today I'm joined by Carrie Benjamin. First of all, Carrie, thank you so much for joining me and sharing some of your insight to others.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you know what? Let's just start. Let's just put things into context. Carrie, if you could just share what your current role is and who you're currently doing that with.
Sure. I actually went to University of Oregon, so up in the Pacific Northwest, and actually had a dream to be in the movie industry, which I did pursue that. I went to Southern California for about 5 years and did everything from personal assistant to the Directors Guild assistant training program. Long story short, came up to the Bay Area to do sports, and I've actually been in the same role since 2007. I'm the director of events at the San Jose Sports Authority. We are the sports commission for the city of San Jose. So our mission and drive is to bring sporting events into the market that make an economic impact.
Well, talk about someone that just gave a perfect elevator speech. That was it right there, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, that was perfectly, not going to say perfectly done. We're not grading people here, but obviously what I do at Talk Shop is sharing with people and developing the skill of how to do just that, how to articulate what it is you do, what's your vision. So, boy, that was really spot on. For those that may not know, I want to ask you, there are sports commissions throughout the U.S. Maybe there's an organizing or overarching body, if you will. Mm-hmm. For people that don't know, there are these types of entities throughout the U.S. that help bring events into their cities. Is that, maybe I should just ask you, what is that for those that want to look into this as someone, hey, I didn't even realize this type of event or program is even around, or a company like this?
Yeah, so there are only 15 freestanding sports commissions left in the country. And when I say freestanding, we're our own nonprofit 501c3 with our own funding streams. Most of them are folded now into the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which will have a sports development department, unfortunately. There's something called Sports ETA, which is kind of our national governing body. But there is definitely opportunity, especially to working at the arenas or the stadiums. A lot of times there's people in there looking for events, and we partner with them. And so I think depending on where you are and what market you're in, there is a lot of opportunity for what I do. And a lot of people aren't aware of what we do. I mean, people have no idea that you have to bid to host the NCAA basketball championships. They just think it's just randomly awarded. And the bidding process is extensive proposals that we write. So I help assist with all the writing, and then my main task is actually executing the events. And so when you work for a sports commission, you don't execute inside the building, but you execute outside. So you deal with the hotels and the hotel contracts. You decorate the city as welcome branding and awareness. So if that's street pole banners to hiring entertainment to, whatever, a street rally, whatever your budget may be. And then I also deal a lot with volunteers.
Gotcha. Boy, you almost knew that next question was coming. That was well planted. Volunteers. And I'm just going to, then I'll get into the meat of why you're actually here on this interview. But I wanted you to share that so people, meaning college students, that just simply may not be aware of, hey, this is another opportunity for me to investigate, to maybe intern somewhere, to get my foot in the door, not just in the sports industry, but obviously as a career path. Volunteering, imagine there's countless volunteer opportunities within an organization. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, we definitely have. We're very small. So when I started at the Sports Authority, we were a team of 8. We're now down to 3. We've been in 3 since 2008. So we're lean and mean. And so we rely heavily on volunteers to do all sorts of things. And they've become also lifelong friends of mine as well, which has been a great thing since I've been there for so long. But one example that I didn't even really fully understand was in 2008, we hosted Team USA at San Jose State, and every Olympic athlete came and got all of their opening and closing uniforms. And I was responsible for all these volunteers, and we were literally dressing the athletes. And it was just such a cool experience that I went on and did it in Vancouver for the 2010 games. I did it in London for the 12 games, and I did it in Munich for the 14 Sochi games. So there's definitely a lot of really cool opportunities that on paper may not look great, but then when you actually are doing them, it's impressive and it's so much fun. So my recommendation is either intern. A lot of them are either paid or a stipend. Or college credit, depending on where you go. Some are free, but most now are doing a stipend of some sort. And then look at the events. We hosted so much in 2019 with the College Football Playoff Championship, to the NHL All-Star Game, to NCAA basketball, all within 3 months. And there were so many. I think we had over 2,000 to 3,000 volunteers just in that time that we were managing. So there's always opportunity. I mean, even if you are fully vested in school, I mean, there's always opportunity because of breaks and that sort of thing to volunteer.
Lots of good information right there. Thank you. I just want to touch on 2 things, networking and interviewing. I want to just ask you first, from your own experience, maybe you want to use your current role, the current job you've been in for some time as maybe the model, but I'll let you decide. When it came time for you to network, for you to share who you are, what solutions you can bring to the table, what's your drive, how you can align yourself to another organization's mission, what are some areas or elements of networking that worked for you and that maybe still work for you?
I am a big networker. I think I've always been very driven. I mean, I said, I went to University of Oregon and I said, I want to get in film, and everybody looked at me and said, you need to go to USC. And I got denied so much. And I am proud to say that I worked on a lot of big time television shows with my name in the credits and that sort of thing. And so I've always you have to knock on a lot of doors before one opens, if that makes sense. And you just never know who you're going to meet at the right time. I think a perfect example is, like I said, I moved to LA, didn't have a job, joined the Oregon Alumni Association at age 21. And I was the youngest member of the Oregon Alumni Association, and went to an Andy Warhol exhibit that the University of Oregon was hosting. And it was a fascinating exhibit. And long story short, I met Kathy Roseberry there, who, she gave me her card, worked at Paramount Pictures. I said, hey, can we just grab coffee? And we did. And I just kept nagging her for about 8 months. And all of a sudden my phone rang and she says, hey, I have a job for you. Do you want to be a personal assistant? I think you'd be fabulous. And so that's kind of what opened that door. And then in the sports world, same thing, is I just started interviewing, informational interviews at the Sharks and with the Niners, just saying I really want to get involved in sports, and met Patricia Ernstrom through a mutual friend, and we connected, and here I am 14 years later.
So let me ask you a question, or maybe I'll repackage it and rephrase it. Maybe this might be, maybe you could, ideally trying to get, it's not a negative approach necessarily, like, hey, what do you see that current college students are doing that just doesn't work? But in a way, there is a way to learn from mistakes. It's pretty clear it happens. So so hopefully that makes sense. Not a negative tone, but just to try to create some reality. Is there a recent example you can share? Maybe it's someone that realized, hey, you're an alum of Oregon, I'm a current student there, or a host of any other college students that just perhaps might reach out to you, but it just doesn't land well for whatever reason. It could be a typo. It could be they didn't ask the question or didn't have a call to action. What is it that's something that maybe doesn't work or doesn't capture your attention?
Yeah, no, I think for me, one thing that I have found, especially in college age kids recently, is they don't have the drive anymore to really just get down and do the dirty work and just learn. And I feel like they're always, with the social media and now a technology changed so much since I was in college, it's just so more accessible. And I just feel like they come in and they only want to work for a few hours. And I get a lot of questioning, which I've never had that before. And as an intern, when I interned, I never questioned. I just said, okay, let's go. What do you need? Not saying all are like that, but I've noticed quite a few have definitely questioned some of my tasks that I asked them to do.
And the next, I want to just kind of move on from that, because everyone is trying to find a way to differentiate themselves. My goal at Talk Shop is to be able to help arm today's college students with, how do you verbally articulate who you are? What's your brand? How do you do that when you have the chance to meet with a Carrie face to face? Is there anything that jumps out anywhere in your career that someone that's done something just that's maybe a little creative, was a little different, but in a way it caught your eye?
I think still going back old school, when somebody writes you a handwritten thank you note and you get it in the mail, it's something that people don't do anymore. And I just feel like those people always stand out, because I just know they are taking that extra time to do something personal for me. I think it's hard. I mean, I feel bad for kids these days, because I think, the college rate is up. I mean, it's highly competitive, and now you have to know so much more in technology than you ever did. I just redid my resume just because of COVID-19, and in the sports world, we don't know what's going to happen, and I need to be ready. And so it took me about 2 weeks and about 80 hours to do it, because I kind of would start with an idea and then change it up and start. And so I did mine very creative, and kind of did something that made it more like a sports article. So it's more not like a traditional resume. And I haven't received a ton of feedback, so I can't tell you if it's going to work or not. But I think just being creative and thinking outside the box with all of that, and being willing to go meet somebody for coffee when it's convenient for them, not just convenient for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I just in a quick little anecdote, because this interview is not about me, but there is, you want to try to find a creative way, but without it losing its impact, whatever that is, at the intent that you're trying to. I've seen someone actually put a resume on a football, believe it or not. Rather creative. Is that going to work every time? Of course not. It just depends on who the audience is. But anyway, trying to get creative is good. Just want to ask you one quick question. It's the second to last question. We're on the home stretch. There's probably a lot of anxiety, or maybe just natural nerves when you're a current college student and you're trying to network. They're trying to get on someone like you, your radar rather. And there's this balance of, being proactive versus maybe being a pest. What's your personal guideline as to, look, God, this person's reached out a multitude of times, variety of ways. What's your personal rule of thumb that just works or doesn't work for you when it comes to being proactive versus, this is becoming a nuisance now?
Yeah, I mean, we actually had an intern last year that kind of fit that for me. I think what's hard is we're a very small staff and we are really busy. And so when we're in event mode, I mean, we are event mode. I'm not on the computer. I'm literally running around doing a million things and executing. And I think people need to kind of understand that. I think the other problem is people don't fully understand what we do. And so then they keep asking, thinking that we're just sitting at a desk and why are you ignoring? But if you want to come out and meet me and see what I do and job shadow, I mean, that to me is the best thing. And I don't feel like anybody ever asks that. They just always want to, they just want a job. They want it the easy way. Or I say, hey, I have the Hall of Fame coming up in November. Great way for you to see really what we do and how much effort goes into this. Come to the office a couple days ahead, witness, volunteer, do whatever you want, and then come to the event. But for me, I mean, everybody we've hired, it's always been somebody that I've seen as a volunteer.
And what a great way to kind of, in a way, take some pressure off of them, the potential applicant. They've already broken that ice. It's rather should be conversational, and it's not the pressure, if you will, of that interview dance. Any advice or guidance that maybe from a mentor or two, could be someone at Oregon, could be someone that you first met. You mentioned Patricia Ernstrom, not to name drop, someone that just kind of put their proverbial arm around your shoulder and said, hey, these are some things to be mindful of that will help you in your career. Anything you're willing to mention to pay it forward to the next emerging workforce?
I learned a lot from Patricia. She is very well-spoken and her public speaking skills are amazing. And the way that she's able to navigate, because we are a nonprofit, but we are funded partially through the city, we're in a political stance. And so you have to be very careful on how you play the cards. And sometimes I would disagree and didn't understand why she would make a choice or change something. And then the result was, oh my gosh, I get it. And being a woman and seeing her strive so much. And she left our organization a couple of years ago to run the college football playoff championship. And I will say I've never been prouder to see somebody in charge with her. She just, I thought, did it amazing and dealt with a lot of tough questions and dealt with tough budgets. But she was a tough cookie. I think a lot of times the people that are the toughest on you are the ones you learn the most from, and you look back and you really appreciate it. I would say somebody that really inspires me all the time. I have a really strong relationship with Ronnie Lott, and he texts me pretty regularly now that we're on COVID-19. And just sometimes it's inspirational messages like, you're doing great, you're a full-time mom, you're working, you're, doing all these things, and just uplifting. And I think sometimes too, work can get monotonous, and you're going to always have face challenges or work with people you don't like and having to deal with that. So sometimes I look to Ronnie because I'm like, he's just so positive all the time. And I love that.
Yeah, no, it's great insight right there. Want to wrap it up with this. I like to always end every interview and ask this. I kind of mentioned it earlier in terms of today's college students, what doesn't necessarily capture your attention. And that wasn't meant in a negative, just like in a learning environment, how can someone learn from what you see to maybe improve upon what they're doing? I always like to wrap up with the other end of that is if someone is networking with you, maybe they've got a special way to verbalize who they are, whether it's over LinkedIn or over a phone call. What captures Carrie Benjamin's attention?
I think finding something that we have a common ground in. I mean, for me, it's always, I love college football. I mean, not just Oregon, but I love all college football. I love sports. I love film. And I love, I think when you go onto LinkedIn, see my background and try to find something where we can connect, because that's the best way, is to find somehow. And I feel like everybody you can connect with. I mean, you just have to do a little bit of digging. But, even if it's, we both know somebody similar, even if it's, separated by 3 people, there's always ways to find out a way to know somebody. For me, that captures my attention, is saying, oh, hey, we both love college football. Love to chat with you about the upcoming season. Or, we both grew up in Los Gatos. Love to chat with you about yada, yada,
Case in point, how did I get you to do this interview? I networked. We knew someone in common.
Yep.
Bingo. There you have it. So
yeah, and we actually know more people than I thought.
Well, it turns out we do, for sure. But I'm hammering home that point.
Yeah.
Any other little bits of advice or wisdom as we kind of just wrap this up? Again, I think, in my humble opinion, working with college students, my goal here at Talk Shop is to get them to, again, be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And with the uncomfortable, being able to articulate their vision, their story. I don't know if you see that necessarily in this generation. And if you do, what would be one last little tip? I misinformed you. There was one more question.
No, I think they just, I think you need to put to paper what you want to do. And then I think you have to realize that you might have to take a couple steps back in order to get that role. I think a lot of kids these days have great ambition, which is fabulous. But to say you're going to be a vice president, very close out of college isn't going to happen, and there's so many examples where somebody started in the ticket department and worked their way up. So I think just being open. I mean, I think our industry is very different than like the tech industry, where we are definitely more of a networking group of people.
For sure. Carrie, is there any website? Is there a blog? Is there anything that you would like to share so people can find out more about the San Jose Sports Authority or any other venture that you're working on?
Feel free. Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Carrie Benjamin Stone. San Jose Sports Authority is on Facebook. We also have our website, sjsa.org, which has volunteer opportunities and lists our internship programs. We are also on Instagram and on Twitter. So feel free to reach out to me either on LinkedIn too, or email me. My email is Carrie, CARRIE @sjsa.org. Love to help in any way I can.
That's great. And again, if anyone here that found any value from Carrie and these interviews that I'm doing, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And more importantly, if you found value in this video, hey, go ahead and share it. I encourage you to do that. Maybe we can get this out so people can learn from folks like Carrie. So Carrie Benjamin, San Jose Sports Authority. Hopefully I got that right. Appreciate you taking the time and sharing great insight with us all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.